Today's question is to consider the two functions. The first function, h of x, is defined as x squared divided by the absolute value of x. The second function, k of x, is defined as x divided by the square root of x squared. Our task is to evaluate the left-hand limit and the right-hand limit of both functions as x approaches 0. Then, based on your analysis, determine whether each function has a limit at x equals 0. Alright, let's walk through this together. Part 1 is analyzing the function h of x. First, let's examine the function h of x, which is x squared over the absolute value of x. We'll begin by approaching 0 from the right side, meaning x is slightly greater than 0. When x is positive, the absolute value of x is just x itself. So in this region, h of x becomes x squared divided by x. That simplifies to just x. So as x gets closer and closer to 0 from the right, the function value also gets closer to 0. Now, let's approach 0 from the left side, meaning x is slightly less than 0. In this case, because x is negative, the absolute value of x becomes the opposite of x, or negative x. So now, h of x becomes x squared divided by negative x, which simplifies to negative x. And again, as x approaches 0 from the left side, this negative x also approaches 0. So from both sides, left and right, the function value approaches 0. Therefore, we can say that the overall limit of h of x as x approaches 0 does exist, and it equals 0. Part 2 is analyzing the function k of x. Now let's look at the second function, k of x, which is x over the square root of x squared. Now here's a key trick. For all real numbers other than 0, the square root of x squared is just the absolute value of x. So this function becomes x divided by the absolute value of x. Let's break this into two cases. First, if x is greater than 0, in other words, approaching 0 from the right, the absolute value of x is just x. So the function becomes x divided by x, which is 1. Now for the second case, when x is less than 0, approaching 0 from the left, the absolute value of x becomes negative x. So now we have x divided by negative x, which simplifies to negative 1. Now look carefully at the limits. From the right side, the value of the function goes to 1. From the left side, the value of the function goes to negative 1. Because those two values are different, we say that the function k of x does not have a limit as x approaches 0. The two-sided limit does not exist because the left-hand and right-hand limits are not the same. Here are a few helpful tips to keep in mind when solving these types of problems. Always consider approaching the point from both directions, the right and the left. Watch for absolute values or square roots, especially expressions like the square root of x squared, because they almost always simplify to absolute value. If the left-hand and right-hand limits are equal, then the overall limit exists and equals that common value. But if the left-hand and right-hand limits are not the same, then the limit does not exist. Finally, you can imagine the graph of h of x as two straight lines, one coming from the right and another from the left, both converging at the origin. The graph of k of x looks like a horizontal step function, with a jump at 0, flat at 1 on the right, and flat at negative 1 on the left. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. Press the like button. Thank you so much.